Hello, America, countries grouped and world. We are in a semi-ancient trap. They knew we would defend. They forced, tricked her, persuaded, took a shock and awe. No, human facts should be defending themselves. We couldn't defend themselves, and more defend themselves properly from what was actually attacking everybody. Was actually making people refer to uses of words like attack for sequence shifts, self value. That's important because not to judge a person. We're looking for the hyper invisible if you follow my channel, my YouTube channel. The hyper invisible. That's what we're supposed to be, the right to remain innocent until proven guilty. All kind of tricks with perception. Oh, I didn't understand. With we can't leave out overt criminal enterprises, private and criminal enterprises, insidiousness of the branches individually grouped in together. Since before our founders were born, they were certain type of victims, predators too. The person at the end of the whip, when they had the roles with slavery, that was a certain type of victim predator too. A slave. Our founders were a certain type of, and they were enslaved. They had to hide their roles, counter extorting the other founders. Inter colonies, 13 colonies. There are proofs that they had help by the Native Americans. But there are also, there is what is actually recorded. The breaching method was the sophistication here that had been sustained. It was measuring, maintaining, nature demonstrating that breaching method to everyone. While it was measuring and maintaining them, propagating everyone, blaming those natural demonstrations of the slavery sickly distinctly against everyone by a breaching method from some ancient times. Those demonstrations are being blamed on other things, others ourselves. Qualities of fact-keeping nature are being and haven't been self-valued, that can't defend themselves and afford properly to be spoken. The answers to why and how the course of black pupils and the whites of eyes simultaneously is not spoken. Exceptions in exception nature's course. Where difference is course. Physical difference is hyper additional with why and how we look for the difference with correlation or contrast when we're dealing with the invisible but still discernible, when we're dealing with words. Every identity has a value that is greater than itself and is more finite than itself, because one identity of hyper simultaneous is itself. That system that makes things, they could work or not. They can be positive or negative or not, in other words. But they also, there is such a thing as criminal insidiousness. There are criminal insidiousness natures of facts treatments and of truth treatments that a breaching method effectively employed and sustained to create knowns, unknowns, and things increasingly discovered, and also unfathomed uses of reactions and means to measure and maintain the reactions when they discover things, when they speak about things and or when they stay silent to things. They already pretended as suits and ties and as counters, they spoke and speak for humanity. Now tactically ulterior from how we are bound, individual groups and species body, /S, the other species body. There's a system that's showing its body. We are a little piece of its body. But now, like a cancer, I'm not a doctor. We are a negative identity of relationship to itself. where Earth has an especial difference to the rest of space/existence. As we know, if we are honest, theory is with each of the sciences self-value, having been juxtaposed also with tactical, criminally foreign influence, factory nature, qualities, aspects, natures, and delusions to effectively maintain to be exploited also at other locations. Formally, effectively to be maintained, all that and all the causes, natures of industries that we were supposed to show were half, the natures of industries themselves were enslaved, sickly, distinctly. Some industries were that sick role with the slavery as the people hurt by it, who were only capable of hurting other people, others themselves. How are they going to speak for international relations where where nature has that wanted and needed, for where evolution comes from? Not that punk fake evolution that has all these technology, and we're still on the base that was northern colonies, southern colonies, employed since before our founders were even born. Everyone's sickly, distinctly enslaved. Since before the foundation of modern nation suits and ties that we know of in the books, know how they left out the significance of criminal insidiousness. Know how they left out or they blame on other things, others themselves. History is wrought with the experts of each of the sciences, though, to a certain type of victim. Just like the experts and roles with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, roles with corners where there are shootings, where there are the relativity when they take statistics, when the relativity of the statistics. They're leaving out what is sickly, distinctly employed, the suburbs, and tactically denatured, reliant upon mass farming from other locations. That's how they made one of the ways they made Native Americans fight with Native Americans before our founders were even born. Distinct countries owned, enslaved the distinct parts of what is now America. The same thing happened with the other countries. We're in a semi-ancient trap. Now they're trying to make it different. They were blaming other things, others, while they were blaming other things, others themselves, when everything's crazy. Oh, it's not my control. Even if you become the most powerful leader in the world as an individual, only an individual can defend the finite. If you do, you're going to start defending and using quality of truth, qualities of facts that are not criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments that originally and still are self-value, having been timed collusions between strangers. This has the complete possession of the identity of value/value progression we are as fact human nature. We are aware in how the engineering of the electrical engineering of language works. The value of the subordinated conjunction, the coordinating conjunction, and the correlative conjunction. And the value of how a word, like an and, could be a correlative conjunction or a coordinating conjunction. It could be used with, but it could be used apart as an extension of a subordinated conjunction. Subordination. See, this is an example where and how the hyper invisible is demonstrated by nature needing to be discerned. Because each one of those volumes as a word, a correlate with the definition of, with the identity of. Every identity is a distinct definition of a conjunction. What it is as a word, it is a word, except where and how it is in nature. It is valued as the body as nature, as a correlative conjunction. We are the discernment of the body as a subordinative conjunction. Now, there are 5 distinct identities of positive that are positive simultaneous to itself or not, with ratiocination / pseudo ratiocination, which is simultaneous, and we in revelations are conjunctive, where and how part that is greater than ourselves and part that is more finite than ourselves, but still as ourselves, because it is completing everybody. That's why every species, even is individual grouped and species body of volume, there are group details, and there are the whole ones, and there is this trinity. There is the cell nucleus, the cell body, cell wall. To be honest, it's a lot easier to say. It's easier to discern that there are 2 distinct identities of relationship to themselves that a cell body has when you look through a microscope at a transverse section, a slice of tomato, which is pretty much translucent, so you could see a cell body, the cell wall / S, where they connect, the water, the air. Nature revealed to the ancients that it is functional, how there is one identity of hyper simultaneous. It is one hyper metaphysic / metaphysics. And the value of that which is the plural part, and the value of that which is the / part, in the value of the singular part. That's to the extent we could discern its complete identity from inside itself, as if we are one little piece inside of our own body, as we are as the species body of individual bodies. No, I self-promote boxings. By the way, I swear to God, Gervonta Davis said on Twitter, I'm feeling like it. If anyone calls me out right now, we could fight, in a Twitter post. So I called him out. And I fought world champions in the amateurs. Leading up to the World Trade Center attack, there had been people that enter cities had been influenced to roles with uses consciously between unconnected campuses and connected campuses, and the difference of that uses consciously. Roles with a child abuse method that had the short words, elderly abuse simultaneously. This is all identity ground location / S uses, names uses. Further, relative to this, so leading up to the World Trade Center attack years ago, people had made confessions. The breaching method affected demonstrably. It affects confessions that people pretend they're not confessions, because they have already it used remotely It showed all formal fact treatment natures, evidence treatment natures, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and identities and or names A through Z. Needs to use their means in nature itself, and see criminal insidiousness, to force, trick, hurt, persuade, quality of fact treatment nature. Roles, willingly or not, they make it willingly because they're fabricating audio and video transcripts off formal database locations as collusions with little tricks put into the databases. Uses of them at other locations. Uses of things communicated on campuses, on database locations. Where the motivations come from this. From other locations. People cannot afford the short words and answers that our founders left us to communicate for themselves. So they self-value. Logic that left out what they communicated to us about how they had to counter extort only first by getting 13 different parts of colonies and making them having to break the laws of the slavery system against everyone at the time. Sickly distinctly. It means everyone's hurting everyone. That means everyone's countering it by valuing unities with each other that were consciously being used as criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and negative treatments were constructed, propagated consciously, where identity theft, fraud, slander roles, where nature is demonstrating. We are all hyper Native American. Native Americans are additionally increasingly valued as that. Not just so we could discern the breaching method there. Not just so we could discern other things, others, or ourselves. And all exceptions and demonstration of the same thing. Blame for the breaching method. Clear as day from some ancient times. One way. They left out how the relativity of criminal insidiousness with the databases. They left out the relativity of uses of the tactical delusions regarding the takes on people's motivations. That are uses of criminally foreign influence, premises treatment, fact treatment, nature, quality aspects, nature, location uses. See, now this sustained from other locations, roles with all the identity of the ground locations, incapable of affording suits and ties, logic, private or the interbranch, the laws, witch trials, real or made up, they were about slavery. That was what was going on at the time. That means they're about, and they're about the where George Washington had to come to counter extort Wethersfield, Connecticut, what is now Wethersfield, Connecticut, where North and South, sickly distinctly through different countries, had roles with the slavery method /S. And that had already been sustained before our founders were born. The suburbs were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Consciously, while they knew they would make effectively, they changed nature's means to cause, they would make the only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures if they were going to self-value roles causing criminal insidiousness natures and positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures, timed collusions with the overt negatives, like overt criminal enterprises roles with locations, areas, states, spots where people get shot. But it's not really those criminal enterprises grouped the way they have them grouped. And all exceptions in exception nature that increasingly demonstrate other. What do you mean? They're all there with a tattoo. It says it. They're all a criminal enterprise together. They came through schools that are criminally foreign influenced. When it wasn't their school's fault, schools came through that themselves. Everyone has logic that's relying on types of experts that are also coming from types of places, totally different experts. Those places themselves, use of those places, used Sense and Sensibility, used Jane Austen's phrase. Reportedly Jane Austen's phrase. Never not read her yet. You saw other locations. In other words, everyone was used remotely from not just from abroad. It was through ourselves. And it had been done to them there. No one would do that for that other reasons. Had they not been, everyone made the only way to defend themselves, fact, nature oriented wise, if they were going to self-value, the species body force tricked her, persuaded to criminally re-engineer that which had been actually revealed by the ancients as the republic for which we stand, and as its conjunction with the exceptions in exception nature system /S that it comes with, because it came with, because the republic for which we stand, what revealed it, and the identities, the names that, and their syntax that revealed it. It came from before sciences became criminally foreign influenced. It came from definitions of evolution that knew that how to check. What's the difference between, is this a truth that brings revelations? Evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere. To say that it is a breaching method that caused the worst things that were left entrenched in American history. That is true always. That's not leaving out any exceptions, not valuing exceptions left out. So everyone starts using broken sciences, pretending other logic in nature, and then names calling, like, oh, you're narcissistic if you say the sciences. So they have the sciences named A through Z, victim, every location /S from off that location was maintained, the victim sustained. Specifically, for uses of not just uses of reactions or non-reactions, for uses of reactions, non-reactions, and the difference. Breaching method made modern countries individually grouped and together self-value. They agreed to call math logic. Identity uses math, physics, logic, but it comes with 3 volumes of logic. (1/3/5). It comes with those 5 identities of sequence / simultaneous nature as only increasing identity of volume, as the one that is making more of itself through temporary / lasting space nature, space / existence nature, as identities, as its own. And as each identity has relativity to positive and the negative simultaneously, it has relativity to a special difference simultaneously. And that's where and how everything that is variable, with the appreciation of a special difference per its system, the value of how it uses value, distinctly from our system's finite, active, and progressive while as them, but while as them to additional ways. We cannot make up what happened in the past. Well, I mean, we could make it up, but nature will demonstrate it. Nature is demonstrating the Native Americans are being forced to legal definitions of their identity. They're being forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, tortured to pretend other, even not even realize it. Same thing, for sickly distinctly from ourselves, below their feet. Even if they, the Earth's identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. For example, where it has a special difference. That is being forced away, and it's still self-valued roles with it. Self-valued roles with fake, all the opinion. Oh, what we're going to do, we're going to put dust on the moon. That's where they're putting, I heard on television, I don't know which channel it was on. I forget that. The answers. And right now, we have a pandemic. We could have. See, everyone speaks about economics and left out how that was employed for the torture slavery method. Everyone left out what is actually discernible with how they have top-down infrastructure in cities from the tactically denatured base. You don't leave out the suburbs. Everyone left out how that gets left out because they employed effectively comparison natures and or denials of it. The array as collusion with that qualities of fact-keeping nature as criminal insidiousness leveraged against each age of correlation nature, sickly distinctly from other locations. That having been sustained, more and more and more knew it could show them it could use remotely. People shown means and needs to get over on strangers. Means and needs to make fake exceptions of knowing that. To do this as the people leading up to the World Trade Center attack, as certain type of victim / hyper victim that is being and has been used as a victim predator, hyper predator. Also, me not wanting to, but wanting to because everyone wants to be silent or tell the truth. They're pretending they don't realize exploitation of rights to lie, hide lies, pretend integrity just to get over on everyone. These same names involved with this, Weathersfield to Branch. In other words, they're pretending I'm attacking them. They're pretending people attack them with the formal sides of the law, juxtaposed with overt criminal enterprise and private ones in all other countries at once, where and how that's what you have to have simultaneously to be able to discern all the names involved. And the proper uses of them. So all the names like Al Qaeda with in New York, the name New York, that's a whole bunch of names /S. And the humanity, that's the species body. It's still individual bodies have been, only an individual can defend the order of the finite, the smallest finite details. See, but opinions, convictions, and natures are with logic offensively affront to those who use truth. And they get away with it by already recorded. That's how they're shown. They already use all formal evidence perception locations. They're already shown since they were kids. They fell for where and how. They're those aspects and natures of really how and why. Each modern country is a shock and awe certain type of victim that doesn't know how to respond as fact-keeping nature, but has to pretend other. Because all locations, areas, and states, that's what it was doing, making everyone pretend they could speak for the law. Measuring and maintaining them doing that as collusions, not just with the exception, like imagine the people involved with the prisons when they had witch trials. You don't even get a punishment. In other words, even if it was made up, the witch trials, that's one of the things employed to measure and maintain. They knew where unity would come. They knew that people would break the fake unity, the possessed unity, and /S, the ones that would come. It has complete possession of all identities of unity, all identities of independence, where and how we are syntactically manifest. A breaching method measures and maintains. Development's voices. Leaving out exceptions, exception nature, and a special difference. So like with Cain and Abel. Now you guys are leaving out all the first part of the Old Testament says all you have to understand is right to hear. So you can't debate Cain and Abel honestly. You have to pretend other. You have to self-value that while with your logic, you have to self-value criminally foreign influence readings of statutes having been. Criminally foreign influence readings of precedents, formal and other, having been effectively used, effectively employed, since before the formal employments of our republic. Recorded effectively maintained self-valued criminally foreign influence since its ancient coming to be, having come to be. There are proofs that humanity was forced by all the negatives in nature. Like, there are proofs that my theory is that we were propagated, we were cultivated by dinosaurs or whatever. In other words, and we developed like a food source. Like I heard black ants. I've never witnessed it, but I heard black ants eat termites, eggs, and they keep the eggs coming. They have a food source. But humanity came before the sciences became criminally foreign influenced. And so with those natures of wealth that have been, other natures of wealth have not been addressed, and uses remotely of the distinct natures of wealth, where the economies themselves individually grouped and together are effectively measured and maintained. Syntactical possessions of a breaching method against each country, each location in it, /S, and each location next to it. It employed short words, all short words treatments. Force, tricked, hurt, persuaded to entertain what can't entertain itself and afford mandated law followed properly. So it increasingly has to self-value, also having been for them, for everyone. Illusions stacked in databases. To collude with the ones you believe because of the significance of how each age of fact-keeping nature has stayed, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, countries as they're actually shared and having been shared, individually grouped and together on and off campuses together. And regarding what they're supposed to hide or not, how they communicate about that or not, where and how. The intelligence community communicates where and how it is used remotely. They are confessing when they say nothing. The WFSB attached me to fake conversations about the World Trade Center. They attached me to fake ties to doctors as a kid. I never had ties to doctors. One of the doctors made a fake trick to put a trick into the record. So if for me, so if I was try to say it in the future, or if my father tried to say it in the future, no, it would make it sound like that. And it would sound like we had communications like with the people associated with the Leahy family that never were. He and I never saw him. I never saw any of the Leahys on Highcrest when I went to Highcrest. They're one of the there are people with next to each of the campuses in town who have connections to roles with they're attached to fake communications with me and roles with predicate acts on my street that involve avert criminal enterprises and private ones, state police, Weathersfield police, FBI, former director of the FBI Robert Lusk and his co-defendants, a John LeConte, a Dominic Lapriata, and a Thaddeus Grabowski. Thaddeus Grabowski is also involved with a whole bunch of people tied to child abuses with the intelligence community on off Fox Connecticut News and with the buildings next to it. And they're also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed having been roles with investigators on off Two Rod Highway and Hangdog Lane, increasingly being demonstrated and having been demonstrated. Roles with them attaching little kids and their families to fake words with themselves and about legal cases and their roles with a whole bunch of different natures of federal criminals before they got caught. And with the prisons tied to the interbranch names involved with this. And some of them are parents that have their kids involved with this. They've been planting fake motives and increasingly valuing all truths that they could use for lies to get away with it. And which is also worse because that's rolls with predicate acts methods. That's rolls with this through time. They have assigned each age of humanity's each grouping of it, individually grouped it together. Short words that can't defend themselves in us from and can't defend themselves and afford to be discerned properly. Phrases, what it means, criminal, why nature has it, because nature wants us to show us that it will not be some things, even if they are positive, even if everyone agrees. We didn't cause it, in your logic. You're leaving out the order of the finite. You're leaving out the smallest finite details. So who disbelieves is a game that we could play. In New York City and Hartford. So I need help on the economic side of the game. Who will believe? We'll do it as a video. We'll be expense for the video. And we'll pay you back. You just have to believe. Who disbelieves? And if I find the right person to do that, in other words, I don't have time to put myself. Okay, well, I'm going to put. I have to get a response because they've been planting between the campuses. I also found out names next to the campuses. I went to a preschool, then I went to a first grade. I went to a kindergarten at one school, and I went to and houses, names next to that kindergarten are also names that were facilitated timed roles with the FBI on and off the news locations, attaching little kids to fake ties to doctors. No. The mental health community and the drug community, they've been putting people to fake uses of drugs. So they and the databases. And with exceptions, they've been criminally foreign influence uses of that too. Hiding means that are actually recorded to demonstrate it. A whole bunch of people with the Weathersfield Community Center and spots next to it have roles with fire departments, use criminally foreign influence. Have roles with medical locations, use criminally foreign influence. As collusions with campuses, spots with foreign and domestic military next to New Britain Superior, Central Connecticut State University, and West Hartford locations. A whole bunch of people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed all along Route 3 in conjunctions to it. Roles with Interbranch family of New Britain Superior Court, Hartford Court before the World Trade Center attack. They forced and hurt and tricked people on and off campuses in West Hartford to roles with predicate acts in other cities, as collusions with ones in other cities, where they have the intelligence community, their families, and doctors associated with them since they were kids. Roles with little tricks with all along the route from where George Washington had the George Washington and our founders had James through James Madison's plan and Native American hyper additional value. See, the Native Americans had to fight with Native Americans. They employed the only means to cause positive value nature progressions. If you're going to be conclusion with the time, negative value nature progressions as fact sheet nature. Therefore, as all things manifest, as actually manifest. Who denies that the suburbs were involved with and are involved, how they are only allowed to be able to be afforded? That was involved with the torture slavery method. What about the cities? No one would get away. No one would believe. No one. There's miscommunications that are forced. Of course, that means that we're the cities right now. Injunctive reliefs. We have the means for it. We have the agreements for it. Who doesn't agree is going to have an inherent active and progressive to their logic. Criminally foreign influence, factual nature, quality aspects in nature. Sequence shift cell value. Things that we know that are simultaneously true. That the logic and nature of identities of development, identities of people, identities of logic. They can't defend themselves most at the same time. Note how Boolean logic, named after a man years ago, but not that far in the distance. In other words, algebra had been revealed way before the guy named Boolean. There's a trinity that is measured and maintained. The trinity comes with each trinity, each identity comes with two identities of possession. On both sides of it. This is cipher of English language and of other languages, and regarding exceptions. We're on the website of Yale University. On the left side of Jesus's head, with the halo illuminated behind it, there's a capital A, and on the right side there's a capital W. XYZ comes after W, and the E comes before the X, because now it's no longer with the body. It's no longer contained by the wall. Extinction. So this is going to be a program, and you guys, because the world could share it, but you have to have someone who's going to do enable. Otherwise, otherwise someone's going to steal it. They're not going to ground it right. but especially if people from New York will help me because these are New York names that had roles intercities, intercampuses, planting fake things. Oh, how you doing? I didn't know anyone was here. Sup, play. I hope you too. Sky, Sky Kurt. Vaccines to teach us things. Nature is demonstrating negative value. Nature progressions, acts in natures. Nature is demonstrating them self-value. Nature is demonstrating simultaneously that being and having been used remotely. Those three things are conjunctive to where and to how. There are, the Trinity is relevant, and to where and to how. The five pillars of Islam, and where how ground is relevant not only to the electrical engineering that we know, but to the electrical engineering of language. And so, five identities of order, five identities of positive can be simultaneously positive or not. The word extremism is effectively being and having been used to measure and maintain collusion/S. Where used remotely, criminally foreign influenced also our countries grouped. And altogether, it's relevant relative to where and to how. So many millions of us know that when people speak about things so critical like slavery, and then color, until you if you're in art class speaking about black or white or exceptions, you can't speak about that until you have the understood and taught how the breaching method employed that, have employed natural differences to mean other things. Additional impositions upon the hypernative. That is the one where the grounds tactically nation and people from other hypernative that are also enslaved forwarded onto it. So the Native American is a hyper additional. But where and how our names are being used and have to be used, we have to speak. They're being forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to use and entertain their names having been used, or counter to the uses of their names they don't like as collusions. Because we're supposed to be using it the way nature has our names to be used, which is about how we are this volume science/S. Individual is something positive to the individual, to the group, and to the species body. Only the individual could defend that question properly. Worse than groupthink is a phrase that came with our side's honest description. See, the honest is mixed with the dishonest because, and the motivations for it were not just the known. The known is never been not individuals grouped together. Tactical ulterior from the species body. No one caused it. A whole bunch of, try to speak about good or bad. When you're little, that's where the short words you needed to understand criminal insidiousness. That's where the short words you needed to understand how about this is about law, religions. That's where you had to understand computers. They're about the value of a sequence, what came first. The stewards of the sciences and of the religions themselves, they are a front against what they are saying at the beginning of the books. Because of the reliances everyone already had upon using dishonestly where and how they know people, or they have logic and truths where they're supposed to rely on other people to know how to react when they have problems with things. But they're increasing, they're adding roles to those problems. So there are remote uses of all locations by a breaching method at every country, but it's through every country's own, and differentially, but increasingly. So when it's addressed syntactically, everyone leaves out the even worse there. But it seems subtle. This was sophistication and since semi-ancient times, since before they started self-valuing and being used remotely self-valuing, criminally foreign influenced uses of names, of positive and negative treatments, of motivations narratives and defenses of them, which are defenses of logic that can't defend itself and afford discern the quality of fact, human nature necessary to counter um, the coordinated, distinct identities of criminal insidiousness involved with the slavery method that can swiftly be understood if we had all come through the campuses for the reasons our founders had forced us to need to be come through education. Everything they told us to do, a breaching method had already set up roles used remotely. Souls. So you would not believe what people on off the state corrections location, on off the state. They have things pretend to have roles with the VA locations in elderly homes, same names. What they call integrity and how they test people, those locations, they're pretending their motivations are that. They're increasingly doing it at all locations. All kind of investigations, investigators, instances, treatments. Oh, this call the police. In other words, all identities are a certain type of victim slash hyper victim, and that is being and having been used for worse. When people say things or don't, and the exceptions, and especially differentially, but indifferentially increasingly, is relevant because already they painted themselves in databases, even with faked audio and video transcripts having been stacked into databases, interbranched through time. Prepare your mind. So they make fake exceptions of people knowing each other, but through a breaching method, knew that they would do such things. It uses them as an identity of volume. The formal fact human nature, the overt criminal enterprises, and the private ones in the way, where and how someone doesn't say, will hold things up. The suburbs are tactically denatured, and look at New York City. Look at the cities across the world. And look at the means we have and how we're still, since before cars, you could do better than this. We could make order. So we have the also what is actually recorded are the Democrats, Republicans, and exceptions being, and names with exceptions being and having been used for a shell game, only allowed to be discerned. Rights to lie, reasons to lie, only allowed to be used by a breaching method, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrong. It's not by accident. You have to follow mandated law. And you have to show, this is where we have to show where the branch, they already painted them, they already had themselves painted into corners. And if you would allow me, I'll demonstrate for you what is actually recorded since they were kids. The people there were other motivations with people in the black background with class placements. You know, and why people, in other words, You have to get them onto paper. They've been using all natures of news media because there have been names next to them. A whole bunch of people with the military next to Fox Connecticut News in Hartford, next to the state capitol, that were involved with predicate acts at campuses behind my back, with the FBI director, with state police families, as people timed roles. A whole bunch of other countries, Russia, Korea, Pakistan, involved with psychiatry drugs and their patients and criminals before they got caught, and since to hide it and against innocent people and their tactically delusions raw in our faces. You don't see how they had to keep the real causes of negative value nature progressions acts and natures in New York City before the World Trade Center attack, blamed all the things others themselves. The World Trade Center has roles with our investigators here, insurance investigators of that too. The campuses they went to. One of the things that is recorded is how connections between campuses that have nothing to do with them themselves are made for them. Where and how the interbranch are influenced to pretend motivations and for the foreign involved with themselves. So a whole bunch of people with Hartford Hospital involved with the name O'Brien and Violet. Also have roles with UConn, with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with people on my street involved with predicate acts, forced, tricked, or hurt, and persuaded to them. Exceptions also relevant use of them with the foreign. In other words, Weathersfield with police switching and forging names, making confessions over the phone. Roles with harassment, slander, and then charging people who are harassment. I caught them with a principal child abuser. They forced it, and more I caught before that and now by making things up and replacing what's actually recorded and changing them. It was over the phone with a whole bunch of answer machine messages, confessions to me and others. There are also people with the name um, O'Neill. There are police families with the name O'Neill on off West Hartford campuses. A teacher with the name O'Neill, and her kids go with Weathersfield schools. A whole bunch of people tied to Weathersfield Police Chief Cintron and one years ago, with all kinds of people tied to forensics locations like Whiting Forensics. They have through time. They have a Joshua Julian involved with various courts, families, and doctors with federal crimes with the social media interbranching at the campuses, also with the police of the campuses, with various drugs and medicines crimes with the kids, sexual crimes with the kids, overt criminal enterprises with the kids, faked attaching the kids to faked conversations and ties to strangers, including doctors, including timed with the overt criminal enterprises and private ones through time. The witness protection and program is also involved with this conversation. They also bring up all kinds of names because you go there and everyone tells you to hold on, and they just keep do processing and putting things in databases, and they attach confessions to it. Then they pretend you communicated with them. They attach people to fake behavior at formal locations and at other locations tied to this. Fake interpretations of people's behavior. You know that New York City, who pretended that freedom stood in New York City, is tactically delusions wrought, but they also have criminally foreign influence, fact, human nature, quality aspects, and natures. And forgiveness is because there's also being that haven't been used remotely since they were kids. Forbid. Where they employed what we are actually capable of discerning from effectively to have the formal interbranch and or the overt criminal enterprise prizes sense and discern someone trying to honestly use what nature gives us to discern how the Native Americans were sickly, distinctly hurt by what we don't want. And Black people were sickly, distinctly hurt by what we don't want. And that's all. We're Black pupils. White people, sickly, distinctly hurt, the way we don't want. Another way we can afford So we have to make an international company. And this is one of the reasons we should do it with New York. Because already, with nature's forces us to be individual grouped and together. And that's part of its system, how it attacks. And how it wants us to, it demonstrates answers to us. So how we have to speak, answer questions. So but now that is through other systems filtered. So people, the news media recorded is with various natures of courts and their family members and police forms and their family members. There's even Governor Malloy, a whole bunch of people with East Hartford, Connecticut, male and female police forms, training of them from on and off campuses. They have acting professors, people next to a whole bunch of conjunctions on off the state judicial branch offices, all along that route, all along the route from Old Weathersfield 175 right to Central Connecticut State University. Whole bunch of people. There are people from Hartford Hospital. There's a doctors involved with all kinds of putting criminal crimes with lawyers too. Tricks with lawyers, ones with badges too. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act. He also has roles with a whole bunch of people directly and indirectly, attaching people to involved with all kinds of various natures of predicate acts, attaching little kids to fake and adults to fake communications about things that actually happen to them by making totally fake things up and changing them and making total fake conversations that weren't at all. I never told anybody in my life that there were police surveilling my father. People from Hartford Hospital have been pretending that with the Leahy family. Now there's also a Tim O'Brien and a Ray Clow recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they involved a CM Faglione family with uses of with corners of the street on a principal child abusers campus, involved with them also with other child campus leaders and their kids. And then years after that, he made confessions tied to that. They have roles in background in my I never had a class with Rick Sam Faglione. And the one class I had him with him in as an exception in middle school for 2 years. We only had 2 years there. I only never even saw him around campus. Rick Sam Faglione. As somebody, there have been a whole bunch of people from the Britain Superior Court, Connecticut District Court, and Hartford courts that have roles grouped also predicate acts at West Hartford locations on and off CCSU and with news locations intercities with names, a whole bunch of conjunctions to the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices, a whole bunch of names. They name stack and then they pretend with other nations do this against their own, that people pretend that are saying, people say everyone else is bad. You know, it's one of the things they do where they have time treatments and they have CNN recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that roles with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes that give them the right to do evil things, but they left out the exceptions, exception age. For example, recorded roles with the World Trade Center attack that were used for even worse. So we have to, in other words, they're making them, they want and need to be perceived as predators and or as victims, where they are actually victims. And where they are acting better because they need to lie about the motives, though. They're needing to lie about what's actually recorded. And I don't know all the names. Joshua Stryker. A whole bunch of people said that Joshua Stryker has been influencing them to put fake things in databases, fake ties in nature, the ties to me and people around me. He has roles with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and various natures of federal criminals, real or made up, in overt criminal enterprises, even if they're undercover. These are people with Afghanistan also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, on and off Trinity College involved with predicate acts with them. As the people involved before the World Trade Center attack, people from Central Connecticut State University tied to Dean Judd's kids and himself and the locations next to the campuses. They have roles of predicate acts coordinated on and off campuses that are filmed 24/7. For example, they're planting people to fake ties in nature's ties to people that were never even next to them on campus. They're pretending things because they've been pretending illusions in other cases. They have roles with all private with all kinds of private and civil cases used criminally for an influence. When there are exceptions, whether it's increasingly being used remotely, the exceptions are the other side, the people with the prisons with them. There are timed roles with names on off the locations of the state prison offices and the locations next to it and along town lines. They've been planting roles, they've been planting fake motivations for where and how maintained are self-valued remote uses of all identities of law, criminally foreign influence, all exception nature tied to them. Under the guise of corrections, they've been preventing people from telling on how they've been enrolled with torture method for the breaching method since before our founders were born. The World Trade Center attack, same names had roles with it, pretended they needed to counter it by making torture legalized. And they effectively did that to where and how they get over on each of the surface values of the Constitution. They have tactically delusions, raw, criminally foreign influence take on religion and uses of that. Also, where and how they have a whole bunch of countries with the psychology, where they have forced mental evaluation places are simultaneously places involved with drugs and addiction, things like that, right on tied to the emergency rooms too. Now, these people have roles fabricating audio and video transcripts into databases, where and how that's one of the ways. Also, they have roles with that used remotely at their roles with parks and recs, town offices, election locations, where there are databases, campuses. They have little tricks to put fake ties in nature of ties between people, also planting fake motivation, timed as roles with overt criminal enterprises, over relative forensics locations, types of police, their family members, prisons associated with them, their social relationships, prosecutors, judges, putting fake things in databases to keep you, not just to keep, they want and need to think it, make it, people think it's other than it is, because it's used remotely for worse. Forgiveness is to let the hyper invisible but still discernible lead. So the news is increasingly being influenced to lie about what they perceive other people's motivations to be. They have a shell game where they are forced like chickens with their head cut off with the people who answer the phones for WFSB and Fox Connecticut News, and they pretend other. They attach little kids to fake ties to others, fake natures and ties to others with a whole bunch of medical corruption involved with the locations next to the news locations. And they should stop making me beg for a response. Get on paper. They fabricated fake emails with the FBI and the Wethersfield police, also a police chief years ago. I don't know the name of, and the transition between, there was one for a short time. One of those has ties to the same house, and one's tied to them with the police chief Cintron for years, and a whole bunch of people tied to him, and people with the corners, with people with corners that have my name used, like involved with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic, all exception tied to them, prisons, people with the military, those databases, people that work with the databases, people that work with the location /S used remotely. Not so everyone's in the way of logic. That's gonna deal with New York City honestly. This legion gains, this legion trades. Who disbelieves? This will. So fix WFSB sought me out. I mean, didn't seek me out. Pretended they had communications with me. and they attach me to fake locations. They attach me as a little kid too. And I caught them attaching little kids and their families to fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people. They've been using what they call research. Oh, well, this people has problems, and then they're putting fake things. They're setting up the little kids. They're using roles with defendants and plaintiffs. They're grouping kids with instances where they have roles with the victims, the plaintiffs, the defendants, the prosecutor, and the judge putting fake things in the databases with overt criminal enterprises and private ones through time, then using it. A whole bunch of people tied to Joshua Stryker, Jeremy Grohl, and people on off all sides of the community center involved with a Judge Smith and a Judge Killian speaking fake things into records, also with child sex offenders as judges from their positions, also with various prosecutors, personal their contacts, and their family members, and their roles with conversations in the news media, sense and sensibilities. Here, we need to get on paper. The interbranch, they switch names too. I'll show you how to fix everything. New York City. This is for Connecticut. They're lying about my behavior. They lie about their perception of when you speak things clear and or when you speak things unclear simultaneously too. Fix the fake conversations with people. Get out of your watch.